Now then, I've seemed to have, as an author, I've seemed to have done a little bit of a bad thing here, and Alan G. Davison will try to correct that as best as he can. Now I'm speaking in the third person. This is bad! Anyway, I'm going to start talking about Alicia. Now, mind you, most of my dialogue and stuff like that probably sounded a little dry and probably not all that interesting, but I really came across a couple of serious problems when I actually came up with the Alicia, in the sense that her blessing would kind of break any sort of tension that I actually had built up over the course of the story, and so I had to do my best to limit her ability without making it sort of disappear into the background. Now, I sort of turned her into a walking deus ex machina in the sense that she could probably solve just about any serious problem I come across, except for on rare occasions. So I really had to come up with other ideas to create tension, suppress blessings, and stuff like that. Her existence really created created issues that I had to get around as an author in itself. And it's kind of funny that she was able to add so much to the plot, and in terms of overall thinking towards plot, when she originally just started off as a basic romance for Dayan. I've eventually gotten through a good portion of the second book, and my thought process towards romance has slightly changed from the original course of the character development. Lucius and Alenia, different characters were meant to hook up together in the end of the original concept. And she was originally intended to hook up with Dayan. Now, that still might be on, it still might not be, so it's not so much of a spoiler as just me explaining the original idea. Because while I was writing through a couple of the through the second book, I was kind of like, that romance would actually work out. And then it's kind of like, crap, then, it's just not worth worrying about just yet, since it's only going to be it's only the first book and second book, and I am worried about it in the back of my head. But as of right now, I don't have any definitive pairings or romances, except for maybe one, which is technically still alive and well in the second book. What romance that is, however, you're going to have to read in order to find out. So, too bad, I suppose. Anyway, Alicia was a lot of things, and I honestly think she was the character out of the group that best didn't match up to original team-ups. Most fantasy stories oftentimes have a lot of Caucasian characters part of the main group. And I had her have olive skin. So she was quite different in the sense. And I guess you could technically call her my token black chick, but technically speaking, Hope is also a dark color as well. And another character dialogue, we'll talk about her later. But she was really sort of the beginning of where I started to try to differentiate a lot of things, because most stories, oftentimes the black token individual is oftentimes male, and I don't really like token characters in general. So I did everything in my power to stay away from any stereotype that I could possibly find or even know about. So I wrote her like I would write a female character, to be honest, or a Caucasian character. So, which is probably the most intelligent thing I probably did, of course, the entire book, is because, she was relatable. And so I really didn't write her to be her or the minority or anything like that. I really did come into creating the character as a character, which is, like I said, a smart idea. And while I was also delving into it, I decided that I wanted to have a little fun with romances, so to speak. I'm a shipper at heart. And I decided to involve Sam as well. Another character discussion for later on, but I really did want someone who would get past the exterior of Sam, and since she was based off of my girlfriend, I figured it was a perfect setup. Now, so, of course, it not only did she allow her, explanation towards Sam's past during the course of the first book, but, she was, the support, the helper. She eventually got involved in medicine, and she eventually became the team medic, more or less. So she filled a lot of different roles all by herself, and most of them weren't intentional. I really didn't think she would become a medic. Her staff weapon was intended originally when she was originally conceived, and that was supposed to be something that Darius taught her. A lot of the stuff that she actually would learn eventually does come from Darius himself, which was always interesting in the sense of that, you know, you'd think that would come from Hope, who was, I guess, if you were to go with the basic 5-man team concept, would more or less be the mentor. But, you know, that's usually how it works, is that you don't learn everything from one person. You learn things from multiple people. Well, that shows to show what I know. Anyway, I really, outside of that, though, she was Alicia, more or less. I have to admit, though, that a lot of what I had involved for the character and a lot of what I could really talk about is kind of in spoiler territory. But I really did try to work with the character's blessing, and I really didn't want it to be too powerful. Effective, but not powerful. Because, like I said, it's kind of a game breaker when a person can stop time. And honestly, I don't think the TV show that actually had another time traveler, Hero from Heroes, was a very good use of the actual character and overall concept behind the time traveling ability. Which, to be blatantly honest, I got a lot of inspiration from the TV show itself, and I was very upset when it went off air. Back to the matter at hand, though. Alicia took on a life of her own the fastest and the first out of all of the characters, mainly because she took inspiration from my girlfriend, mind you, but she had no character backing or design behind her. Whereas Darius and Lucius were based off of real-world characters, and Dane was sort of my own personal interpretation of what a hero was. I really didn't have a whole lot to go with when I went with Alicia, which made it a little bit more interesting to write for her, when she basically became the sister character, the romance, the token black chick, she just became so many different things. I really had no idea what to expect from the character anymore. And in the end, I really did enjoy having the character get involved into the story itself. She, to a more important extent, was also a great person to have ask questions, since she too would probably be curious about the world, but she could ask questions I think Dane couldn't really get away with, like inquiring about Sam's past, and stuff, of more personal matters. Because, to be honest, I think most people find it much easier to talk to a woman about personal issues than talking to another man, mainly because most men are probably known for saying, "Suck it up, you pansy." Anyway, it's trying to stay away from stereotypes. I honestly didn't really know what to do with her, and honestly, it shows in the actual story itself, in the sense that she doesn't really know what to do with herself either. More often than not, she actually changes a little bit over the course of the story as she tries to adjust to her situation. Sometimes she's trying to find a new home, trying to help out, filing, anything to really to help. Because I think we both recognized very quickly on is that she really didn't bring a whole lot in terms to overall story structure, which was kind of a pity since she was the one that developed so much character to herself. And it's also kind of funny that with all of that brought on, is that she was quite literally, trying to figure out her own place. And mind you, I really never figured out exactly what that place is, and I still haven't yet. She's a very interesting character in the sense that she hasn't gotten a set station in terms of the group dynamic over the course of the books, at least that I've written so far. Now, I've got my own ideas for her in the future, mind you, but it's interesting in the sense that, when I was confused about her, the character herself was also confused, as I sort of popped her in and out and stuff like that. Lucius and Darius had their sort of rivalry. Darius and Sam had their very, very major dislike of each other. Hope and Darius had their mutual distrust. Dane and Hope, their manipulative, relationship, so to speak. Everything seems overall that she literally didn't have a whole lot in terms of dynamics. She got along with just about everyone to some extent, but she also had her protection complex, or helper complex. You know, I really do enjoy what happened with the character. I really do. But she was so difficult to peg when I originally brought her in. And to be honest, I really hope it didn't seem too transparent throughout the course of the book. I have gotten some feedback on her. Like I said, my girlfriend said she was very relatable. I haven't had any complaints, but another individual who actually read the book considered that she was a bit of a B-word towards the end. I honestly didn't see that, but I guess that's a sign of a good character, is when two people can read the story and come up with two different opinions and interpretations of said character. I really did enjoy her, though, and I have to admit, it was kind of surprising to see her evolve from what was supposed to be basically a romance character into something much more dynamic in terms of character. And to be honest, I don't really know if I'm going to do anything seriously romantic with the individual, simply for the fact that she's taken on a life of her own. And that gives me great joy and pride to knowing that she actually did, to be honest. Because, let's just say, I didn't really have a whole lot of ideas for her when I originally created her. Another character would be Alicia, who will be talked about soon enough. But, she was an interesting individual, to say the least. And she really made me think and evolve the story as well. I'm sort of running a little bit low on things to talk about her in departments, because she overall, kind of like Lucius, didn't bring a whole lot to the plot. Mind you, she could have easily just been a damsel in distress. She could have been captured at the beginning of the story. A lot of ideas that have run through my head, just nothing ever really seemed to work for said character. Outside of that, though, I did mess around with her actual her femininity a little bit during some parts of the story, but for the most part, I usually left it alone, to be honest. There were some comedy. I did put in some comedy revolving around that, but overall, though, she, like most of the characters, weren't really defined by their ethnicity or anything like that. Funny, I really didn't think a whole lot about it until I actually started bringing it up myself. It's kind of funny how that works out. So, to the first female character to be introduced into the story besides Dane's mother, who got a whopping prologue. Man, I'm so full of cliches. I really am, now that I think about it. Oh, well. She was an interesting individual, and I have to admit, I really look forward to seeing what happens to her later on in the story. Yes, the author has things planned, but he doesn't always know.